Organize the speech in a manner that best achieves those purposes. Ensure the beginning, body, and conclusion reinforce the purposes, and project sincerity and conviction and control any nervousness you may feel. And strive not to lose yours. Our second speaker is David Abramovitz. David comes from a very small family and says that makes each member that more important to him. Today, sharing some of his experiences with his family in order to help others, we welcome David and his speech, "My Grandmother Forgets, How Can We Stay Loving and Connected to Those with Cognitive Laws?" Please help me welcome David Abramovitz.
My grandmother, Sadie Abramovitz, was always a loving grandmother who seemed to be always losing her memory. But we didn't know, however, whether she was actually losing her memory or she was trying to play tricks on us. Example, she used to call us up when we were kids and ask us what our phone number was. When my sister Marla was born on Christmas Eve, 1958, so the story goes, I wasn't there, my grandmother got all excited and was there to call the relatives. And back then, technology was such that since it was Christmas Eve, the phone lines would get jammed and an operator would come on. And my grandmother insisted with that operator. She said, "It's Christmas Eve and I just had a baby. You gotta let me through. We're gonna name her Mary." Mr. Toastmaster, fellow SEC Roughriders, and most welcome guests. How many here, show of hands, have close friends or relatives that have suffered cognitive memory loss? I see quite a few. It is extremely important and yet difficult for us to maintain a connection of love and caring towards those people that suffer. I certainly am not an expert in the field, but I have had a loving and caring relationship with both my grandmother, who had Alzheimer's for many years, and now my mother, who has fallen into a state of dementia for the last 2 years. While most of us are not scientists and can't see cures, what we must do is elevate the quality of the visits we have with those afflicted. How can we make those visits more valuable, more enjoyable, and more memorable? I want to share with you 3 suggestions that have worked for me. Suggestion number 1 is when we speak to those afflicted with cognitive loss, we speak in terms of the simple pleasures in life. What does the person like to touch? What do they like to taste and even smell? I remember my grandfather, Sam, used to visit Sadie in the home she was in virtually every day for years and bring her favorite foods. And I vividly remember my sister and I visiting on a day where my grandfather was feeding her tangerine slices. And as she devoured those slices and looked like she was enjoying them so much, my sister and I turned to her and said, "Grandma, how do those tangerines taste?" She paused, and with that wrinkled, beautiful Sadie smile, she looked over and simply said, "Delicious." My second suggestion is when you are dealing with people with memory loss, is to lose your expectations about who they were and what they have become. My mother, Diana Abramovitz, is now 81 and lies in an elderly care home, and she suffers, like I said, from fairly severe dementia. It wasn't always like that. She was a smart and savvy psychologist for much of her life, albeit one to share her opinion, even though it may hurt her feelings. I recall when I used to go visit her out west, and she would see me and she'd say, "David, my most handsome and smart son." I don't have any brothers. When my mother began to lose her memory, it was very difficult for my sister and I. It was very frustrating because we couldn't talk to her about the things that we shared we'd like to talk about. It was only over time where we began to lose our expectations about who she had become and accept who she was, that the level of loving and caring and communication could reach a quality that is important. The third suggestion I have in dealing with people with cognitive loss is to engage emotionally. At a certain point, it's no longer about the subject of what you speak of. What matters is that contact contrasts loneliness. Being there amounts to being taken care of and sharing that togetherness, and that's what counts. Counter to how I was when my mother was more lucid and a little more crazy, I never now forget to tell my mother that I love her. And I do that for many reasons, but one certainly is that I know that there will be a time where I won't be able to do that. Losing our friends and our relatives to cognitive memory loss is damn hard. It's hard for them. It's hard for us. I do believe strongly, however, that there are steps we can take to keep the connection of love and communication strong and ongoing. It's important that we keep the communication simple and in the now. We get rewarded from losing expectations about those who suffer, accepting them for who they've become, and yes, even forgiving them for who they were. Engaging emotionally helps the afflicted person and even us to gain human needs of love and companionship. These are critical and key steps that go far beyond fear in the absence of medical cures. Mr. Toastmaster.